Helen is sitting at her younger brother Duncan's wild party and waiting for him as she recalls finalizing her divorce papers and then how on her wedding day Duncan already said that Mike wasn't it for her. She starts looking around for him to hand him her house keys when Duncan's childhood bestie, Jake, walks up to her. He tells her how she used to be more fun, offending her, as she tells him she's going on a hike camp the next day and leaves after handing him the keys to her brother. The next day, Helen travels to her grandmother, Gigi, and spends the night there. While traveling to the hotel booked for their trip, she noticed how shabby and weird it was, and it doesn't get better when the receptionist inside is a youngster with a non-serious-to-life attitude. However, she meets Hugh, a guy her age, who is a hell lot dramatic. Hugh sighs that he isn't the only old person on that trip. The room she is given is weird, clearly indicating the stuff this hotel is usually booked for. The next day, everyone is called in to meet their guide, Beckett. After giving a little route overview, Beckett allows everyone to introduce themselves. There's a girl, Wendy, very lively and here to enjoy. Mason, who is a professional hiker and know-it-all. Hugh, an aspiring actor, here to feel at ease from his frustrations. Helen, of course, decides that she needs to yap all about her life in that one go. Everyone must be weirded out that she listed her divorce story, her miscarriage, and almost all of her internal dilemmas just in an introduction. The next is Jake, a past medical professional, here to figure out a way back to life due to some unforeseen challenges. Yeah, it's the same Jake, Duncan's best friend. Helen is annoyed that he's here while Jake pretends he doesn't know her. Lastly, there's Sue, who is a debater and a yapper, but is taking a vow of silence on this trip. And there's Kaylee, who looks like she's high on something all the time and is here to face her childhood fear of the woods. As everyone is changing their outfits, Beckett notices Helen wearing new hiking shoes instead of the ones sent to them days before so they can settle in. Helen forgot those shoes at home, downgrading in Beckett's list of people already. After Beckett briefs them about the plan and the do's and don'ts, Helen follows Jake out, telling him to leave if Duncan sent him. Jake refuses to leave, claiming he signed up for this ages ago, and agrees to pretend that he doesn't know her. He also refuses to help her, knowing very well she's prone to accidents. Reaching the start point of the hike, Beckett makes them use the forest to change their clothes and be ready. Helen, being Helen, ends up slipping and slamming her leg into a rock while picking up her bag. When she comes back, she acts like she doesn't have heavy blood running down her leg, but Beckett makes her get treatment from Jake. And obviously Beckett doesn't like the person who got hurt before even starting the hike. As the hike begins, Mason is annoyed that everyone's slowing him down, but Beckett tells him to work as a team. When they have their first break to hydrate, Beckett has to remind everyone to not step on logs because they could be rotten and can break your leg if they break. Why the reminder? Because Helen did it twice already. As they set up their tents for the night, Beckett and Jake help with hanging the food on the tree to keep away from bears. Talking with Wendy at night, Helen tells her how Gigi raised her and Duncan, but doesn't dive into her past much. Wendy then tells her about having a crush on Jake, while Helen constantly shares points against Jake. The next morning, Helen takes Jake to the side to help with her bandages, and then makes fun of her glasses. Jake tells her he's farsighted and has a night vision thing as well, that he can't see at night, but it's fine since they only hike during the day. Helen tells him she brought him to the side to get help for the multiple blisters she got on her foot in just one day. Since she had already been holding everyone back, she didn't want to be more of a mess. However, the two don't notice in their bantering that Beckett came to talk to them, showing him the blisters involuntarily. Beckett blames Mason for Helen's blisters because his speed as a hiker is putting pressure on a non-hiker Helen to keep up with him and get her injured. Helen also gets a scolding for not dealing with the blisters right away. As the hike continues, everyone's getting along pretty well. During one of the camps, we get to see Helen is more troubled than she already looks because she gets mad at Jake for having good nature, always looking out for her and telling her she is too good for her ex-husband. Helen lashes out at him for not knowing how it is to walk in her shoes to talk that way, but she sounds downright dumb to be offended that someone cares for her. Beckett decides to break the group into two teams, the fastest and the slowest except Mason. Mason is made to go with the slower group so he learns teamwork. Before they can leave, Beckett sees a piece of paper on the ground. Littering seems to offend him to the core as everyone gets an earful about the situation as no one takes the blame. Well, only Helen is that clumsy, but no one says anything. Before splitting up, Jake and Helen apologize to each other for the argument the other day. Jake hands her his paper, telling her she can hold on to it but not read it. As Jake and Wendy leave, Hugh walks up to Helen talking about Wendy's huge crush on Jake and how he sees tension between Jake and Helen. Helen tells him that they know each other, and he also signed up a while ago, but Hugh tells her that Jake mentioned signing up for the trip just a day before. The slow group is led by Hugh, but after traveling for a while, Helen feels something off and takes the map from him to check. As they're all turned around and Helen realizes they went on a wrong turn, Hugh decides to forget that he shouldn't walk on a log. The rotten log breaks, getting his leg into it. Helen, Kaylee, and Sue help him out while Mason just stands there frozen. Helen suggests taking his leg out. After they do, they see his leg is broken. After splinting his leg, Helen tells everyone that they can camp there and sleep in shifts while caring for Hugh, as she fetches the other three for help. The three of them wait for the others on the campsite when Helen walks up to them with the news. Beckett tells them they should go back as the day breaks and sleep till the morning. Helen and Jake are sharing a camp when the conversation leads to Helen's dead brother. Helen tells him how when she was 6, her brother Nathan was 5, and he wanted to see the boats as they were at a friend's lake house. Helen refused to do that and didn't realize that Nathan went on his own, never to come back alive. Even though Helen was only 6, she felt responsible for not going with him and for not noticing he was gone. This led to their parents' divorce, and then her mom dropped the 2 siblings to Gigi's one day and never came back. The impact is clear on Helen's mind, as she is always rude to Duncan just because he didn't go through what she went through, as if he didn't grow up without his parents too. After this conversation, the two end up in a lover's quarrel. As Helen interrogates him, kissing Wendy in Truth and Dare, and Jake questions Helen clinging on to her ex-husband by picking up his calls and still keeping contact. The next day, everyone helps out Hugh, creating a temporary stretcher. Mason, Beckett, Helen, and Jake carry Hugh to the ambulance. Before leaving, Hugh tells Helen to confess to Jake if she likes him. Mason has finally started to blend in with others, and Jake and Helen have also been passing time without getting into an argument. As they catch some fish to cook for dinner, Helen notices Jake missing and goes to look for him. She finds him sitting by a tree. Jake gets up and hugs her, telling her he is scared. Jake had lost his glasses and it got dark so he couldn't see. Jake shares with Helen how he is losing his eyesight day by day due to a genetic disorder. He feels scared about how his life is changing and it isn't in his control. Helen consoles him. As the two are about to kiss, they are called by others. The next day, they all walk back, happily and successfully finishing off their hike. After the end of the hiking trip, they have a small party at the hotel where Beckett names the certificate to Hugh, as per the votes. Helen, who initially wanted the certificate, doesn't seem to care now. Talking with Mason, she gets to know that Jake told everyone he has someone he likes back home. Some hope dies within Helen, and she decides to leave right away with the excuse that she isn't good with grand goodbyes. On the drive back, she's sure she likes Jake. The next day, she opens the paper he gave her on the hike and reads a beautiful poem about him confessing his love for Helen, making Helen realize she was hasty in leaving. Gigi can notice a pleasant change in Helen, and as Duncan visits, Helen apologizes to him for her behavior and promises to improve in her role as an elder sister. In the evening, they go to Gigi's book club party. There she is dancing with Duncan when Jake walks in. Helen confesses she shouldn't have left while Jake confesses wanting to be with her for a long time. With this cute confession, they kiss to officiate that they are finally together. The day ends happily with everyone partying and a new beginning awaits for Jake and Helen.